everybody, it's Jillian. Good morning. Good morning. I remember the days, which I'm kind of actually reliving at this point. I would go on to different news outlets like CNN or Fox. I would put my opinion about something, and then you have everybody just having an opinion or their reaction to your opinion. And you see just the intensity of the emotions behind the information that they're putting out there. And it's like, wow, you can tell some are like a bit more balanced and others are not, like they don't have this major visceral reaction. Others are just like, and God forbid you say something that's going to conflict with their ideas or their opinions. And so it's interesting. I mean, now that I have a different point of view on the world, I'm coming from a more balanced perspective on everything. I can actually just go and to like a public site and say what I say, have an opinion or have some kind of reaction to whatever article that's out there, and not get too caught up in the drama back and forth. Now, sometimes it gets dramatic, but I can actually take a step back and look at what people are saying without getting caught up in the emotion. Because you realize that you're seeing now how biochemistries play out in just by how people debate back and forth. Some are so intense that I have to actually block them because they're way too intense for what I want to deal with. And some are just like, mocking or trying to I don't know, debate and see what they can, try to change my mind and all that. So it's quite interesting. But lately, since we've covered, I would say almost I think everything as far as the universe and the human body and the Jilly juice and substantiating everything. And it's like now we've taken everything from a micro level, and now I'm expanding out to a macro level. How the micro level affects the macro. Okay, so micro is the details, the things that make up the macro, and then now we're seeing how the micro really affects the macro. And it's crazy because there's no surprise why, or it's no coincidence that I started segueing into like Genghis Khan and segueing into some history, as well as then now current events. Okay, because there's something happened to me last night that was a trip. Okay, after watching all these things play out in the media as far as these shootings and all, okay, because you can't say that you're not affected by this. All of us have been affected by all of these shootings and the conspiracy theorists and the different factions that are fighting with each other. And when I seen like an American flag and I see a white male next to it, there's an actual visceral reaction. And I'm like, holy shit. And that is psychological, because it seems to be that now American flag and a white male is like a representation of violence and patriotism. And now we're bringing in the guns along with that. And I'm looking, I'm going like, holy crap. Okay, so this is, talk about imbalances, okay? And we have a society, it's on a trajectory that is looping in the same arguments, in the same fears. And we have foreign entities out there that are capitalizing on the weaknesses of America. And I'm watching, of course, Frontline. You say, oh, I'm being brainwashed by my own government, but here, just listen, hear me out here. Back when we didn't have the internet, it was like underground type of groups, could be anti-government, could be other types of groups that would have pamphlets. And if you're connected with someone in some political party or some political type of fringe group that they would give you this pamphlet and you go to a meeting, and the meeting's somewhere like, you know, way out in the country underground, and you had to have a password to get there. And then they talk about all the different things. Like back when in the 90s, when I went to a Lou Rockwell meeting, somebody was handing out pamphlets and they're talking about how the Queen is like the ruler of everybody, and how we're not really a free nation. We're under the Queen, you know, Queen, whatever her name is, Queen Elizabeth. And I'm just like, what? And so I went to the meeting, and it was like, okay, my mom went with me too. And it was like, okay. And it went to one meeting, and that was it. I'd really just like, okay, no big deal. So you'd have to go to you'd have to go to a meeting like every single week, just like going to temple, going to church, or going to school, or going to take in a class in whatever, to then get, I don't say brainwashed, that sounds so pejorative, to then have to be programmed into a type of thought process. Okay, so that's harder for fringe groups. That's why we didn't have all this like violence and conspiracy and infighting and just this intense rhetoric, because it was harder to reach masses, because we did have one news outlet, NBC, ABC, you know, they're all kind of the same, right? And so that's how, you know, we were more unified back in the 80s. I mean, yeah, there were some issues, but I'm telling you, back in the 50s, 60s, right after World War II, or even before World War II, we were mostly a unified nation. And then we were also building too, we're building a nation as well. So now we have, there's all this politics and foreign policy, and we're having all of these conspiracies and anti-government groups, and then we have imbalances and cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and mental illness, and then this whole conspiracy stuff. And then I'm like watching myself and my friends just really bash the American government, really bash their own country, really bash each other. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then family members are turning against family members. And we have trolls on the internet that go in and just cause people to fight each other. And you're like, oh yeah, there's some kind of plan for Mossad, or some kind of plan for the CIA or the FBI. And so now we have this whole distrust of not only each other, but now of authority. And we have such fast communication on imbalanced bodies that the reactions are stronger. The reactions are more intense, and we are procreating on very, very weak bodies that don't know how to discern through fact or fiction. And then we also have the thing with Putin. Now, I've been focusing a lot on, which I was like, what? I haven't really focused on Trump or any of the politics, really. I've been trying to stay away from it because it's just so divisive. But then I'm looking at, you know, how does this actually correlate with the J-juice world, and then with imbalanced bodies, and then with the conspiracy world? Why is it that I'm getting away from the activism? Why is it I'm getting away from the anti-vax? Why is it I'm getting away from all of the anti-government groups? Why is it? There's a reasoning behind it. Because I realize that when you are in these activist types of roles, when you're so intent in your belief system, regardless of where you got it from, it then causes people to commit violent acts, because you're not only dealing with, you know, the weakness of the body, but also weakness of the mind and the spirit. And then it justifies people to then turn into Manchurian candidates. What's going to trigger somebody to then go do something that what happened the last couple of days? Gilroy, Dayton, Ohio, some other place, Chicago. It doesn't have to be some CIA puppeteer calling somebody on the phone and saying these crazy words, and then the person goes and does, or saying some regular words and the person goes and does stuff. No, it's that fact that we have, and I've heard, yeah, the fact that there is information that Putin and the KGB and even the CIA does stuff too to other countries, But they also, since information is so easily transmittable, and it's back and forth, and it's so quick and so rapid, that it's very easy for another government, another foreign entity, if they want to take down a nation, they don't have to go to war and press any nukes. All they have to do is find and create a website or create a story around something like the Democratic National Committee, convention, whatever, hack into emails, or find something about a truth about something and then twist it and then feed it to weak minds out there that take it and run with it. So you see then now Hillary, you see Podesta, you see all these different people in the media. The whole thing with Epstein. Granted, yes, they are, you don't know who Epstein is, what his role is, where he got his money, all this stuff, right? You don't know if he's being propped up by either Mossad, or you hear about that, or it could be by the KGB. Could it be by our own government? I don't know what the incentive would our own government try to take down itself. It wouldn't make sense why our own government would take down itself. So then it makes you wonder who out there is planting all of these different stories to then feed into the conspiracy community, who will then feed into then this whole anti-government rhetoric, who will then feed into turning against your neighbor, turning against yourself, being anti-vax. It makes you wonder who actually started all of these types of campaigns that caused then the weakening of the fabric of our unification of America as well as the West. It makes you wonder, it begs the question, because I don't see an incentive of why our own government would want to dismantle their own population, why they would want to create this type of infighting. Somebody else who knows psychological warfare is capitalizing on very weak, imbalanced bodies. And so when I have a visceral reaction, when I see a specific picture, because America is going to now have a reputation, which it already has, of being such a, of being so racist and so like America strong, to where we'll resort to violence on anyone that doesn't worship it in a way that they see as appropriate. It's becoming very extreme. And so I've been on some of these public threads where it's like, I'm saying, American flag is going to be like blasphemy, because it's going to be representation of what people deem as what people are thinking that Americans are, racist and haters, and will shoot people up if you don't believe, or if you cross any boundaries that we have set out there. And so we're now seeing the changing of the perspective on Americans. Americans are not, I think we've heard about Americans not being well liked in other countries, but this is becoming even worse. We even have our own people here in America not liking other people on our own soil. What the fuck? So this message is for all the conspiracy people. This message is for all the anti-vaxxers. And I've been part of that whole community, so I know exactly what goes on. For all the chemtrail activists, for all the 5G people, you could be a victim of foreign manipulations. If you're going to turn against your own government, you're going to turn against your own people on your own soil, you could be a victim of foreign manipulation. And on a weak body, it's becoming more intense. And we're procreating on weak bodies that can't handle all of this information. And so what happens is that Facebook is now seeing exactly that. Now that you don't have borders on Facebook, information and language, like there's no, if you go down to like the border of like Mexico and America, it's very difficult to pass information back and forth unless you're bilingual or you have a translator. Okay? But you know how easy it is to get on Facebook, no borders on Facebook, and you have a perspective or an idea or a truth about something, and then you go and just create this truth, or you repeat and parrot what somebody else has said. Because this is what, in the Frontline documentary, or the Frontline interview with some guy in, some CIA guy in the American government. You have the trolls that will go and feed people false stories, and the people take it as truth. Or you have bots that go and repeat the same party line. Anti-vax, the government's trying to kill you. The biotech's trying to kill you. Big pharma's trying to kill you. Your own government's trying to take all your guns so they can enslave you and then put you in a concentration camp and you die. I mean, that's exactly what is going on, is that some foreign entity knows the weaknesses of all of you, knows your fears, knows your weaknesses, knows that a lot of you are dealing with cancer, disease, and chronic illness. Russia has been using viruses for therapeutic reasons. They know the power of viruses. But guess what? They know that we have a lot of ignorance in our society, a lot of fear. And I'm guessing in my heart of hearts, I have an idea that some foreign entity, whether it's Russia or China or some other foreign entity that has a stake in the demise of America, is feeding these people these stories, or dropping little seeds here and there. And then somebody that happens to be a doctor will pick up on this and be like, oh, this makes sense. It fits in the context. And oh, if I start this movement of being anti-vax or being anti-government, or oh my God, they're trying to take all of our guns, guess what? You created a campaign, which yes, you make money on, because not only are you being like this revolutionary, oh, I have this idea because I picked up from like DC Leaks or some other type of website that's created by somebody who has nefarious intentions. They think that, oh yeah, if I create this platform, I'm going to get a following, and then I'll write some books, and then what else? Patreon account, and I get hits and clicks, and I'll sell shirts and T-shirts, and then that's where the Larry Cooks and the other guy I forget that's part of the Vaxxed community, then they pick up on this. And of course, people are dealing with cancer, disease, and chronic illness. They can't figure out where the hell it's coming from, or why their friends and family are dying, or why their kids are coming up autistic. And so they lay the blame game. It's total psychological operations. When you finally get really clear with J-Juice, you're going to see the psychological operations. You're going to see the instigators in your family. You're going to see the instigators in America. You're going to see the instigators from foreign entities. And then when you listen to all these different, opinions and perspectives, you will then start seeing the bigger picture. You'll be able to wade through the fact and the fiction. And then you start putting shit together, and you're realizing, holy shit, I've been a victim of major, major manipulation by a foreign entity. But it's coming from your own neighbor. It's coming from your own family member. It's coming from somebody that's in the government that may be a double agent. Okay, I know this sounds kind of crazy, but remember, wars are not always fought on a battlefield with guns. Those days are kind of over with. That's obvious. You're not going to see an invasion of like some guerrilla army coming through, because all we got to do is press a button and obliterate some man army coming through. Now it's psychological operations. So then it's also, so yeah, you can see biological warfare, but there's ways to counter that, and that's what J-Juice does. It counters the biological warfare, and in turn, it's also going to counter the psychological warfare. Okay, because not only biological, it's also psychological. And this is why I guess I've been focusing on this, because I'm looking like Genghis Khan and all of, he was doing psychological warfare, and then he was a victim of biological warfare. Microbes is what took Genghis Khan down. A guy that was very smart, very strategic. He took over millions and millions of miles and united a lot of different civilizations and clans and tribes. Very, merit-based type of leadership, where he capitalized on your talents, not because you happen to be in some kind of blue blood type of position. He said, hey, you have a talent, let's capitalize on your talents. This is what I need. This is what you do, da, da, da. And that's how people were able to rise up in his community and his civilization, because of what they were able to offer to his army and to his people. Okay? So psychological warfare is not anything new. And you really have to really get your body, mind, and spirit so well balanced to be able to counter the biological warfare and counter the psychological warfare. See, now it finally makes sense. Because I'm thinking, why would our own government want to dismantle its own land? Why would they do that? Then you'd be like, oh, well, because they're part of the elite, the Illuminati, the puppets that control America and Europe, and they want to take over and they want to kill everybody, but yet you're still alive. But they want to slow kill you, right? Because they don't want to kill you outright. And I'm like, you know, at some point, that's got to be ridiculous at some point. And now they're like, oh, now they're focusing on the mass shootings because now you don't remember Epstein. I'm sorry, but or there's no more, you know, Muslim terrorists anymore. Now it's these white terrorists. They're switching the script so you can be all distracted. No, we have a problem here in America. We have major imbalances here in America. There's only so much the news can go and cover when they see a major domestic issue. Okay, where you're seeing people react so intensely on stuff that's being said on the internet. Words create worlds, and it creates actions. I've experienced it. Okay, so you understand, I've experienced this manipulation of information. It's not something that I'm just reading on the internet going like, oh, this is what they're doing. No, I've had people mischaracterize my information to try to cause people to not do this protocol because they have a fear. Where did that fear come from? This whole thing with the salt, you know, there's stuff that they say, you know, like on these different sites, I mean, American sites, where they just say that when you have salt, it would then, it doesn't cause it, but how they word it is where you think it causes it. But no, it's more of the fact that if you have an issue already, it's going to highlight it because it's an energy source. But that's kind of the mistake or the fault of the biotech by not really fully explaining the true reasoning behind why things happen in our body, and that salt's not poisonous. But people that are fearful and that don't want you to do something or believe in something, they will go and capitalize on that fear and then mischaracterize and demonize and then cause you a lot of issues. Well, that's the same thing that happens when someone's trying to take down America. It's no different than someone trying to take down somebody like, you know, that's trying to put out a really awesome protocol that's substantiated by science in different contexts. So if that's how people try to take down one person by purposely mischaracterizing and demonizing and harassing and trolling and all of that, then what would stop? How do they learn that? How do they learn that? Somebody knew psychological operations, psychological warfare, and they do that on a massive level. Because remember, everything is infinite. The microcosm explains the macrocosm. Okay, so if I experience people trying to demonize me and trying to harass me for this information because it's not even that they don't want people to get well, maybe they do, I don't know. But maybe it could have been a troll from the freaking Russia that knew that this stuff actually worked, that they don't want Americans to be healthy and well balanced and peaceful and to see through the bullshit. So it's so hard to say what drives a person to really go and do these types of trollings to where it could translate into physical violence. And then the train has left the station because it becomes a domino reaction. Okay? And so this is where you really got to bring in the right elements to get rid of the gunk, to get your body right, to get your mind right, to then get your spirit right. And then all of a sudden you see through the bullshit. Right now, where people that are not on J-Juice, even people that are on J-Juice, still buy into all of the conspiracy stuff. I'm watching some of my friends that I've known for a while on this protocol for the last like 3 years, been on the same time, but they're still buying into the MK Ultra, the conspiracy, the whole thing with the shootings, of it being a conspiracy of the government trying to take your guns, and it, you know, and then still focusing on the whole, you know, Epstein, the Clinton, and all that stuff, which is totally irrelevant. We have people that, yes, do crimes, but what they're actually feeding into is taking down and creating mistrust in your government, having mistrust in your own neighborhood, where you can't trust anybody. That's what the conspiracy community is doing, is they are actually parroting what some psychological operations is actually doing, because there's no reason why our American government would want to take us down. Now we're wondering exactly how Trump is affiliated with Russia. I don't know exactly what goes on, okay? Because yes, America has been infiltrated. It has been. And you're seeing it, okay? And we now as a people have to then be a bit more savvy in these operations, because our government is not necessarily going to know how to roll this out. And some of our own government is compromised, okay? Yeah, it's going to come out, and it's already potentially coming out. And there's a lot of things going on in the background that most of us don't know anything about. But you got to have trust in something, because then what's going to happen is we're going to turn into anarchy. There's anarchists out there that just think that everything is CIA, that everything is completely like bullshit as far as the American government. And they are instilling infighting within America to then have people turn against each other, to then create chaos. Do you know where death comes from? It comes from chaos. The reason why I got into this whole thing now of switching from being like anti-government, anti-vax, to being now pro-government and pro-vax, so to speak, I guess in appropriate scenarios, is because I understand the laws of the immune system, the laws of the body. As soon as you violate the laws of the body, the laws of the immune system, you go on a death trajectory, then you have chaos, then you have things that happen, anomalous things that happen, glitches, odd behaviors, to then potentially deadly behaviors in the right conditions. And so we're seeing that right now in the population. I see it in kids today being raised by parents who still have issues from the past, present, and obviously the future. We're creating our own homegrown issues, terrorists, I guess, because we have not killed off the programming. Okay? You know, either living in oblivion or using cannabis. I'm wondering if, I mean, now I'm saying like this could be a whole conspiracy with the cannabis industry to basically anesthetize the population and make them weaker and weaker, so it'd be easier to take over, which obviously it's happening. It's, you know, it makes you wonder where all of this legislation comes from. Is somebody feeding something to where then they create a platform, and then it gets influenced, you know, through legislation, and then it becomes actual law and actual, I mean, it's pretty insidious. And who's to say who started all? The fact that it's out, the outcome is the intention. The outcome of degrading and creating, you know, a decline in just the trust in our nation with each other. It's been somebody's intention. Now, whose it is, I don't want to say it's our own government. There are other entities out there that want to take over. Okay, and it's not going to be boots on the ground. It's going to be psychological warfare and bio warfare. Now, I'm not saying that that our own government's doing it to us, and I'm not saying, and I think that also too, that on a very well balanced body, the viruses that you're being exposed to, it's not gonna affect you. So you're gonna be impervious to all the different warfares that are out there. You're gonna be impervious. But the fact that it is something that, I mean, we've seen it back in, well, we didn't see it, but people back in the, you know, the Black Plague, and then, you know, the thing with the Cherokees, you know, the smallpox and the blankets, Andrew Jackson, the things that, so, I mean, and I guess it doesn't even matter whose fault it is, but to being aware of the potential of the psychological warfare, being aware of the potential of biological warfare. However, viruses existed long before man, but man has figured out a way to manipulate the elements for his own intentions. And you have no idea who has what intentions and why. And right now, the conspiracy community and the anti-government community are speculating, and then they're taking their speculations and creating a truth from it. Okay? And so this is why it is so important to do J-Juice, because you're going to be impervious to the warfare that's out there, the psychological and the potential biological. And then you're going to see through all of the bullshit. You're not going to take part in it. you're going to see it for what it is, and you get out of it like so quickly. Because the more that you feed into all of this political bullshit, aside from just uncovering it and exposing it for what it is, you're contributing to the demise of not only your friends and family, but of your own country. Okay, I've talked to the FBI. They knew who I am, because now we're having to where, why I said that was because Ohio is going to put forth legislation to where they're expanding the certified protection orders. What's a CPO? It's where you can petition the court to have somebody have obviously a restraining order against them, but also to take away their arms. Okay? And so what they're putting out there is called the red flag policy, the red flag legislation, to where if you feel somebody is saying something online that is potentially going to be a danger to you or a danger to society, and you have evidence and you have screenshots and photographs and maybe recordings, who knows, because obviously you're going to be involved with them and somehow, or see them and somehow, you can petition the court to do an emergency order, an ex parte hearing, to where you show the evidence and they do an emergency order, and then they have the sheriff come to your house and take all your guns. And then there's a hearing 10 to 14 days after that initial petition, for then the person who has a petition against them to go and defend themselves and say why it is that this person did this and why they did what they did that would look like something that they are a danger. That's already happening. And that red flag policy is then going to be targeted to people in your community. And so if you don't say anything on the internet, then it'll be grandparents, parents, neighbors. It's going to be everybody in your community that's going to be reporting somebody. This is what these manipulators out there have created, to where now we're turning against each other. We're going to be having to, because the FBI doesn't want to have homegrown terrorists that are going to be doing so. So now they're going to be doing, they're going to be profiling. So what you say on the internet is going to be held against you. What you say on the internet, your intense extremist points of view of anti-government, anti-establishment, anarchy, is going to be held against you. Because it's not only just that they're concerned about, it's what you're creating, what you're promoting. And if you're promoting anarchy, and if you're promoting anti-government types of thought processes, and you're anti-vax and anti-this and anti-that, they're going to be looking at you as somebody that's going to be creating these types of people, because you have, all of us have clout and influence. And so if you're not exhibiting these characteristics, somebody in your world is going to be exhibiting and being triggered by what you're saying. And I see it right now in my conspiracy friends that are so diehard. Oh my God. I'm like, holy shit. And it's now that I'm on J Juice, it's more intense. It's way more intense, because I see it's like the Princess and the Pea. You become more sensitive to those that have very intense emotions. And so when I'm commenting on some of these public sites like Fox, like CNN, and they're talking about like a hamburger that's now costing $20, because of minimum wage and all this taxes and whatever. I'm saying, if you want a $5 hamburger, go to McDonald's. When you go out, you're paying for the ambiance, you're paying to go out and be around people and have nice food, okay? $20 for a hamburger, whatever. And you see the intense reactions just from that, just from some benign comment about a hamburger. Oh, imagine when you're talking about, the America, and talking about guns and talking about vaccines and cancer, disease and chronic illness. You're going to see people freaking go off the deep end. And then then what happens is, when you guys go off the deep end with all of your conspiracy and all your stuff, you're then triggering people who have major imbalances. It's a chain reaction. It's a major chain reaction. So this is why it's so imperative that those that are on the J Juice stay on it. Those that are contemplating J Juice, stay on it and find a way to wean off your activism, especially around the chemtrails. especially around the 5G, especially around the anti-vax, because that is right there going to trigger someone who really truly thinks the government is trying to kill them, going to commit some pretty atrocious acts. Because you have no idea what you say is going to trigger someone to do something crazy. Okay? And so, you know, that's why I worked so hard in substantiating all my information, because people think I'm trying to kill people with salt. No, no, no. This is not just a salt protocol. This is cabbage. This is kale. This is water. This is probiotics / lactic acid. Okay? And so this is a chemical process that the body totally needs. And we're seeing people dying from cancer, disease, and chronic illness because they are lactobacillus deficient, or they're probiotic deficient, good bacteria deficient. They are, you know, micro and macro nutrition deficient. They are electrolyte deficient, and they're suffering with major imbalances. And they don't want to deal with pain. So guess what they do? They go take a drug. Okay, they go to cannabis, they go to painkillers, they go to do all these negative elements like detoxes, antibiotics, which basically is utilizing elements to stop the healing process, stop the programming in the body. That's what antibiotics are. Antibiotics are not necessarily bad unless it's intended to stop the healing process in your body. The word antibiotic tells you about the intent. So it makes you wonder, who has fed people all of these stories about anti-vax? It makes you wonder where that actually originated. And they do talk about that. I think Andrew Wakefield or talked about it, but who fed him this information? Where did he find this info to give him a platform to then take off on the anti-vax? Where did the whole thing with the Illuminati, the thing that caught me, that woke me up, was Alex Jones. Where the hell did he come from? Who fed him all that information? Who fed all of Natural News their information? Who's really trying to weaken the fabric of your nation by giving you all of these things that are further weakening your body, weakening your resolve, and then feed you the conspiracy stories? Now you're saying, okay, this is like a conspiracy in itself. You're saying there's a conspiracy. Well, there's psychological warfare and biological warfare that's been practiced on nations for centuries. Genghis Khan did it, and then he got a get back from the Europeans, who then gave him typhus and took down his nation. So this has been going on for centuries. This is not anything new. Now, I mean, the resurfacing of the really traumatic times in history when it comes to civil rights and slavery, I don't imagine somebody else is using that to keep people all at each other's throats. Every time you resurface something historical like that, it brings people back down to a baser level, a baser instinct where they hate each other because of something happened a million years ago. There's reasons why we have to understand history so we don't repeat it. But there is a point to where you abuse bringing back history. Why are certain things in history being revived, and why others, like the whole thing with Genghis Khan and typhus and micro and macro, or, you know, bacteria being used as a war, or, you know, as a weapon. But then they are saying that, but then they're saying that the American government's doing that to people. And it's just like, I mean, when I was in the military, and I was in a very mobile unit, I transferred from California to like Mississippi, and they were trying to get the anthrax shot. And in my head, I'm like, I don't want to do the anthrax shot. But I guess anthrax is pretty prevalent over there in like the Gulf. But I was like, I'm not doing the anthrax shot. So I got out of the military. That's how I got out of the military, was that I was a conscientious whatever. And so, and that was before George Bush froze all of the exits from the military. So they froze all of that. And I got out like in 2002, I think. 2002 was when I got out. Because I didn't want to get the anthrax shot. I was reading stuff about the Tuskegee Airmen and all the different experiments. And I'm like, I don't want, you know, and hey, if you're going to be going into a country or a society that has microbes that your body is not equipped to really take on in a full force, you got to get the vaccine. And if you are on a weak body, yeah, you're going to have issues. But I didn't know that back then. But I mean, why, I'm talking about this is because psychological warfare, micro warfare is real. And the American government is not trying to kill you guys. If anything, they're trying to keep you alive, because maybe, who knows, some foreign entity is doing this, purposely bringing in these crazy viruses or kicking them up or spreading them. You don't know really truly what is the intentions, but then we're speculating that our own government's doing it. And then there's, like I said, there's always instigators in every family. Every family has an instigator, someone that stirs the pot. Even in my group, some people like to stir the pot in my group, and I get them out. Okay? When somebody purposely stirs the pot, you get them out. It's like a rotten apple. Okay? And so I can see why some countries, if you are so extreme in your viewpoints, whether it's religion or politics or something else, they will go and do a re-education, because they know if they can't, since we know we can't force people to eat healthy and be well balanced. So how they alleviate major extremism, they put them through a re-education camp. So I'm thinking like, wow, China, holy shit. Now they do use some physical means to some people who are very, very stubborn. Okay. And I don't think that's good. I don't think using cattle prods is really going to help anybody. But I understand the thought process behind it, because I'm telling you, look at America. We have so many differing viewpoints that conflict with each other, and you're on a very weak body and minds that can't discern between fact and fiction. Holy shit. Yeah, this is the unraveling of America. This is the unraveling of America. And yeah, we're gonna, we're gonna have to go through 7 billion people to figure this shit out. And you're gonna see a lot. You're already seeing it, guys. This is where you're gonna have to pay attention to your own family. You can't be oblivious and think that, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do this and do that, and think that you don't live in a society where people are unraveling around you. People are having children on PTSD bodies. Okay, and they're so extreme in their politics and in their religions that you don't know who's going to commit a crime. So you have to then now be situationally aware. It's kind of, and now I'm kind of seeing a little bit of why some people have an issue with Trump. Because he's not exactly very good with his words. And, words create worlds. Words have an impact. And he may not be exactly unifying everybody. However, we have a scarcity fear. Okay, and where that came from, I don't know, because I'm telling you, all these different political platforms were created by somebody that had an intention, and it may be a good intention, like you're trying to save the planet. But then when comes every savior, it then becomes abused, and it becomes so extreme that it actually is doing the opposite of what it's intended. Okay, it's all about balance. So I don't know really what the answer is, except to just do the J juice, get your mind, body, and spirit well balanced. Then you'll see through the psychological and biological warfare perpetrated by who knows who, doesn't even matter. But you have to realize you're all being manipulated on a major, major level. And if you're buying into the GMO versus organic, if you're buying into all of the different platforms that are very, very divisive, you could be manipulated by a foreign entity that you don't even know, And then what are you teaching your children? You're creating now children that are going to be homegrown, fearful terrorists. Is this something that you really want for your future? Because the red flags, now they're going to be profiling all of you. Every single one of you, they're going to be profiling. And one of the obvious profiles is the Trump supporters. That's going to be an obvious red flag, are the Trump supporters. I've seen some Trump supporters that are so intense that you're like, holy shit, where did that emotion just come from? It's insane, the emotion behind the Democrats and the Republicans, both sides. It's like everybody is a freaking issue. So now they have to figure out, okay, who is more of an extremist that buys into the Democrat Republican type of politics and anti-government. I feel bad for the FBI. And then the court system is going to be full of people who are going to want to get back at each other too, because there are people that are like, oh, you know, I have an issue with a family member and they did this, and this. I want all their guns taken away. So it's going to be used, you know, as retribution in families, as well as stopping potential domestic violence, you know, domestic terrorism. But I'm telling you guys, we're going to have this police state, and it's not because of the government trying to kill you or hurt you. No, it's because it's self-induced. Every single thing that happens right now is self-induced. The reason why we are where we are is because it's self-induced. It's not somebody else's fault of why you are where you are. You are where you are because you guys contributed to it. And I did too. I take responsibility for my years of being anti-government. I do. My years of being anti-vax. I take full responsibility of my part, and now I'm trying to correct it. The J juice is my redemption. It really, truly is. The J juice is my redemption. So you guys now need to look deep inside of you, figure out, do you really want to take part in these anti-campaigns? And maybe just pay attention to your own family, pay attention to yourself versus trying to legislate on somebody else. Don't force the J juice on anybody. Don't make them or say that they're bad or wrong for not doing it. And just watch how everything unfolds. Everything is predictable when you understand psychologically what makes people, what motivates people, what makes people do what they do. Fear is a major motivator. Fear and then propaganda. And then you see on the news where in New York, a car backfires and everyone's freaking out. That's how triggered our population is. That is how triggered our population is. So do the J juice, pay attention to yourself, watch the news, watch your friends. You'll start seeing the patterns emerge. And it'll hit you. You'll be like, oh my God, I was that person. Man, they're freaking intense. When you can self-reflect, that's huge. Most of you, or a lot of you, can't self-reflect because you're so stuck. All right. You guys do your thing, but the geopolitics and J juice, it's eye-opening. It hit me like a ton of bricks when I had a visceral reaction seeing a white male right next to an American flag. I'm like, holy shit. If I have that visceral reaction and I'm on the J juice and I'm in America, imagine what other people are thinking and feeling. This is not good. You guys, talk to you later.